Okay, so this is a little video about wheel building. I'm just going to rebuild an old wheel that I have, and it was causing me some problems. This is a wheel that came with my Ribble Audax bike 6-7 years ago. It's quite nice, roddy rims and a hub. So I've dismantled the wheel. It's a 20 spoke wheel, which is not that many. A lot of the wheels you'll see, classic wheels will have something like 32 spokes. This is 20, and the spokes are in pairs. So around the rim, if you can see this, there are set of two holes there, a pair, and then another pair, and then another pair. So they're in sort of separated pairs. The wheel here, this is the rear wheel, which I'm not rebuilding at the moment, and this is on the truing rig. So obviously when I've rebuilt the wheel, when I've rebuilt the spokes in the hub, it's going to need truing, which is the process of making it run completely true in this direction, and I'm also going to need to correctly dish the wheel. And that is dishing the wheel means that you want the rim to be running exactly in the centre of the hub, and to do that you use a thing called a dishing tool, which is the one I've got here, and I'll demonstrate how that works later. So one of the reasons why I had trouble with this wheel is because for some reason whoever built this wheel used two different lengths of spokes. And when I went to true this wheel, retension the spokes, I needed to tighten one or two of the spokes to get it to run true. As wheels, after a while, they need retruing because the spokes stretch, and after riding it for a while, you need to retension the spokes to retrue the wheel. I found that the adjustment on the nipple was already right at the end of the thread of the spoke, so they wouldn't go any tighter. And I found when I dismantled the wheel that some of the spokes were longer than others, and that is a common practice on a rear wheel, where you need shorter spokes on one side, longer spokes on the other, so that you can dish correctly to compensate for the gears. But on a front wheel, which is completely symmetrical, the distance from the hub to the rim is identical on both sides, so it should be exactly in the middle. So there's no reason why the spokes should have been different lengths, and that puzzled me. I think that basically they just ran out of the shorter spokes and they used some longer spokes, and it was okay, but that caused me a problem later on. So anyway, I've just bought some cheap and cheerful spokes. These are classic J spokes with a 90-degree bend on the end and a thread on one end. These are 286mm. I measured the spokes I needed from the shorter ones that came out of the wheel, and I reordered some cheap ones. These are not even butted, they're just straight 2mm spokes. This, it's just a bit of a training wheel. This is a bit of an exercise for me. It's the first wheel I've ever built. Later on, I actually want to, buy some really nice rims and some really nice hubs and some fancy spokes. I'm going to build a wheel, but the first thing first really is to practice on this one. So this is a new experience for me. So obviously a quick look around the bits and pieces. This is the rim. This is the hub that I dismantled with the 20 holes on each side for the spokes. Sorry, 10, I beg your pardon, on each side, making a total of 20 spokes. I've completely resurfaced this hub. I've taken it to pieces. I've re-greased the bearings, the cones, etc. Readjusted it, and it's running just like new. So that's very nice. I have the spokes, as you've seen, the nipples that go on the end of the spokes, and also some little washers that I need for this to go on each of the nipples, because this particular rim needs a little washer where the nipple meets the hole. I've also got my X-Tools spoke tension meter, which is really essential for tensioning the spokes to get them in the right range. You don't have to have spokes exactly the same tension, and indeed they won't be exactly the same tension after you've built a wheel. There'd be different tension on both, probably each side would be slightly different, and due to small eccentricities of the system, you're going to get slightly different tensions. And so, but there is a range of tensions that is acceptable, which you can calculate from the, there's a table that you look up to see what you need, and you just make sure that the tension is within the acceptable range. So that's that. This is the truing tool, a screwdriver just to get to the end of the nipples to tighten them up initially. And just a quick word about the spokes. I've treated the end of the thread of the spokes I'm going to be starting to build with, and all of them will be treated with, in this case, grease. Now, a lot of spokes come already treated with a substance, like a blue or a pink substance on the end of the spoke, and you can also buy this stuff as well, and it's called spoke prep, and it acts like a lubricant and a bit of a Loctite at the same time. So once you've adjusted and trued the wheel, they don't twist, and at the same time when you go back to true the wheel in a year's time, you don't find that the nipple is seized on the thread, so you can adjust and true the wheel. Now I'm using grease because I don't have any spoke prep, and also I don't see a problem with this. A lot of people don't like it, but basically this will keep it lubricated. It won't act like a Loctite, but if I make sure that the spokes are not stressed, they haven't got any twist in them, which is something that you can do. You can de-stress the spokes when you build the wheel. It's part of the process of building the wheel. Then I don't see a problem with that, and because I'm going to be checking for the wheel to be true, and I'll probably tweak the trueness of the wheel from time to time, then I don't see a problem, and so that's what I'm actually going to do. We'll see. I will see in a year's time whether I will kick myself. Maybe I should have bought some spoke prep, but it'll be a part of the learning process. So okay, so I'll get on with building the wheel, and we'll take it stage by stage. So I'm going to start building the wheel, and of course that requires to understand the pattern of the spokes, and how they sit in the hub, how they're laced in the hub. The process of building the wheel and putting the spokes in is called lacing, and it can be quite complicated, and obviously, as I've mentioned, there's only 20 spokes here, so the lacing pattern is not too complicated. I've taken a series of photos before I took the hub apart, because I just wanted to be able to remind myself what I'm doing, because as I say, it's the first time I've built a wheel. Also, most of the videos you see on YouTube about wheel building, they are building classic 32 hub rims mostly, and so that uses a lacing pattern called a 3-cross pattern, and that means that each spoke crosses 3 others, and the lacing pattern is a certain, obviously it repeats around, and it's fairly easy to follow. In this case, I've established by just looking at it, this is a 2-cross pattern. So as each spoke crosses another spoke, and then a bit later on it crosses another spoke, and so it becomes a 2-cross pattern. So it's not such a complicated pattern. So the first thing I'm going to do, should mention, it's always a good idea to kind of reference, to be able to see quickly where the valve hole is. I've just put a bit of tape next to the valve hole so that you've got some reference point. This is very handy when you're truing a wheel, because when you're going around tweaking the spokes and you want to make one revolution or something like that, you just want to make sure that you know where you started, because it becomes a bit samey as you go around. So I put a marker on there, and the first thing I'm going to do is to drop 5 spokes. You may be able to see from here, 5 of the spokes go in this direction. I'm just going to look at this one side. They go in that direction, and then the alternate spokes, 5 alternate ones making a total of 10, go in this direction. So I'm just going to start by dropping the ones that go in this direction into the hub. I'm not going to do anything fancy about referencing where I am on the hub. I'm just going to put 5 spokes in. As you can see, when you put a spoke in, I hope this will focus. The J spoke obviously goes at 90 degrees, so you end up seeing the little end there, and when the spoke goes in the other way, of course, you see the end from the other direction. So as I'm dropping them straight in here, so every other hole I'm going to drop a spoke. Okay, that's 5. And that's there. Okay, so there we are, 5 spokes. I'm just going to choose one. With the 5 spokes in place, I'm going to lace all of these into the wheel. So I'm going to choose to take the first spoke, my reference spoke. I'm going to choose the pair of holes to the left of the valve hole here, and I'm going to just elect to use the right hand pair, the right hand of each pair for these 5 spokes. Now the first one goes in the right hand of the first pair, then I miss out a pair, and the next one will go in the right hand one of the second pair, then again the third spoke will miss out one, and so on and so forth round until we have 5 spokes in. Okay, so the process is basically to just insert the spoke. I need a washer. The washers are cupped. I want the cup facing up so that the nipple sort of nestles into the cup of the washer. Take a nipple and just tweak it on a couple of turns, just a thread and a half or something like that, just so it's not going to go anywhere, but we don't want to thread it on too tight at this stage. When we've laced the wheel to start with, it will literally look like a trampoline and it will just bounce around, all the spokes would be incredibly loose, but that's how we want it to start with. So we're just going to, there we go, that nestles in there. So the next one along, as I've said, it's going to miss out a pair, and I'm going into the right hand one of them. After putting the first 5 in on one side, I'm now going to put in 5 on the other side, and I'm going to put in the ones that are the same relative to the other side as these. In other words, the ones that are inserted from the outside in. Now, if you look at the photo here, you'll notice that if that's one of the spokes I've already put in, on the opposite side of the hub, it's coming in from the other direction. So there's an offset of 1 for the spokes that are dropped in on the other side. So what I've done is I've put 1 in, I've dropped a spoke in relative to this side is exactly the same as the other side, and it's 1 off. And the spoke will end, the wheel will end up being like this. It will actually twist like this when all the spokes are in, to get those angles exiting out. And this naturally will happen as we lace the wheel. And so this one I've put on this side is one along from this one, and therefore it goes 1 along. So that's how I've worked out where that one goes. And so now I can just follow the same pattern from this side. I can drop in the rest of the spokes, and I can put them together in the same way as I did initially. So that's what I'll do. So alternate holes, I'm going to drop the spokes in. Okay, so that's how it's looking so far. That's half the spokes. I'll just stop there for a second. Okay, so now we've got 5 spokes in each side, all of which have been inserted from the outside in on both sides. It's now time to put the alternate spokes in from the inside out. So rather than just dropping all 5 in at a time, I'm going to lace 1 spoke at a time, and this is where the 2 cross pattern comes in. So I'm going to put one in this hole here, which, if you like, is partnering with this spoke, so it's going to go in this way round. I'll just demonstrate with a spoke that I haven't greased up or anything at the moment, and then just to demonstrate the principle. So from the inside out, it's going to cross, it needs to cross its partner, and it needs to cross, because it's a 2 cross pattern, it needs to cross this spoke, but on the inside, so that they actually kind of rub together. If I didn't cross it over and I went for the hole where it's going, they would be sort of separated. They've got to cross. It's the lacing. On a 3 cross pattern, you do the same thing. On the 3rd spoke, it crosses underneath, so that they touch. In this case, it crosses this one, and it crosses underneath this one, and it has to find its way into this hole here. So that becomes the 2 cross pattern, and of course this hole will go down here and down here and down here, so it will just be nice and easy to follow once you've got the first one in place. But here's a difficult thing. It's not now easy to I can't push the spoke out of the rim anymore, so I can't thread by hand a nipple on the spoke. It's actually quite awkward. Now here's a trick. So I just take that spoke out there, that's the hole it's going to go into. Okay, so here's a trick. Take a spare spoke and a nipple and thread the spoke into the end of the nipple, the wrong end of the nipple. The threads go right through the nipple, so you can thread it from the top end, and you can use that as a way of putting the nipple in. Now of course I'm also going to have to put a washer on, and be careful and put it in sideways if you like, so the washer doesn't drop off, but I just demonstrate anyway. You put it in there, and that allows you to take the spoke and do your crossing, and then you can just twist onto the spoke if you can, push it through, twist until you catch the threads, which is easier said than done. Another way is to take, if you can't do that, I'm struggling, take that one out and then get your screwdriver and gently tighten onto the thread. There we go, and now I've got it. So that one's in place. Obviously I will actually remove that and put in a greased one, and the next hole will be the same process. I will put it in. Okay, I will cross its partner underneath the next one. Here's where you start having to bend things a little bit, in there and into that hole. And as you can see, we're starting to work our way around. So I'll just do that now and come back to you when I've finished. I'll actually take these 2 out and put proper greased ones in with the little washers as well. Okay? Okay, so I've carried on lacing as I was explaining. I did the other side as well. I didn't want to bore you completely to death. I'm sure you're already comatose. But anyway, all the 20 spokes are in. They're all alternating on both sides. They're all forming the correct lacing pattern. And the wheel at this point, as I said, it's absolutely loose. Some spokes, you know, they're just very loose. So the only thing I'm going to do now is basically just use a screwdriver and tighten each nipple so that I've got 1 or 2 threads exposed. At the moment I've got, you know, 5, 6, 7 threads or something exposed. So I'm just going to go around the wheel using this as a reference. I'm just going to tighten these up with a screwdriver. In fact, I'll probably put it in the truing stand to do this, and I will just go around tightening them up, and really that's the end of the lacing of the wheel, and it's ready now for proper tensioning and truing. So I'll do that now. So in the end, I abandoned the screwdriver because I haven't really got a screwdriver that fits nicely into the holes of this this rim. So I'm using my spoke key, which is the way that you use, you know, that you end up truing the wheels, and I'm just tightening each spoke so that I can just see about 1 thread left. And the wheel's just starting to tighten up now, so it's not quite as bouncy as it was. So that's as far as I'm going to go on this video. The wheel is fully laced. I've tightened up each of the nipples so I can just see the very end of the threads. That they're not exactly the same, but you know, the wheel has got a bit of tension in it. The spokes has got some tension in it. If I choose a spoke, and it actually registers on the spoke tension tool now, so it's reading 30, which I can say I think it has to be somewhere between about 40 45. So they're obviously too loose at the moment, which is great because I can tighten them all, tension them all evenly, and put it in the truing rig, and at the same time true the wheel, and also use the dishing tool to dish the wheel to make sure that the rim is running exactly in the centre. So that is the process of truing the wheel, which really is the subject of the next video. So this is the end of this video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.